Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I believe that you are all coming into the room at the moment. So I'll just give you a moment to get settled. While you're getting settled, Mary Grace, hi Mary Grace. Let us know where you, there we go. I don't even need to ask anymore, right? You're already all well trained in the webinar format. So Mary, hello. Hi Hoon, sorry about the pronunciation from Vietnam. Hi Jay, I think I recognize that name. Welcome back, Jay. Achari, I recognize that as well. Hello from Thailand. Where in Thailand and Bangkok are you guys? Hi Leon. In Sapansung. I'm not sure I know where. I know Bangkok quite well, but I've never heard of Sapansung. We got Chiang Mai, good. Be getting nice and cool in Chiang Mai, ready for the winter. So welcome everybody. My name is Del Spafford. I am the Asia Regional Professional Development Manager for Macmillan Education. It is a real pleasure to invite you, to welcome you today to our first autumn webinar. I've asked you to put in the chat where you're from. It seems we've got a lot of people from Thailand and Vietnam. Have we got anybody else from anywhere else? Thank you. Keep posting in the chat where you are dialing in from. So our theme for these autumn webinars, this trilogy that we have, is all about advancing learning, inspiring change. This is our theme. So as you see through the next few days, we're going to have 3 webinars. And I'll explain a little bit more about them in a moment, but just a little bit about Macmillan Education, so you can have a quick read of that. We've been advancing learning for over 175 years. We're actually coming up to our 180th birthday very soon. And we work with teachers just like yourself in ELT, in curriculum, so working in schools, maybe teaching maths and science, and also in higher education as well. So working in universities, and we're here to help and support and provide resources to teachers to help them get the most out of their teaching, and then obviously the most out of their learnings. As I mentioned, we have 3 exciting webinars coming up, different kinds of formats. We're trying to change the way that we deliver our webinars to help teachers engage more with what we do. So you'll see today the webinar is about change the way you deal with large classes, and then we have a global webinar on Friday, and then we have another local webinar, a regional webinar for you guys in Asia on Tuesday as well. More about that. You will receive a certificate. We always get asked questions whether we have certificates for you. Well, we do. You will receive your certificate after the session is finished. It may take a few days. Please be patient. And also, don't forget to check your spam folder. It may go into your spam folder, but you will get a certificate if you have registered, and you must have registered to be in the session today. So stand by for that. But as I said, just be patient. So coming up we have a session today that you've already signed up for. And on Friday, we have a really exciting session with a global session. And this again is all about change, opening the doors of change. So we know that in the last few years, we've seen a massive change that has been actually forced upon us. And this change, or any change, can be handled in a couple of different ways. You can take it as something positive that you can learn from, or you could take it as something that is difficult and a challenge and might cause you problems. Well, we want you to see it as being something that you can develop from, and that you can have the power to change yourself. And Zarina and Harry and Matthew will be hopefully inspiring you and giving you advice and thoughts on how to make change both locally and globally within the wonderful world of ELT. On Tuesday, I will be delivering a session. Super will be the host of the session, and we will be looking at mixed ability classes. So very specific teaching skills dealing with the challenges that you are facing in your classes. Today, however, we are looking at large classes. So large classes is what our wonderful regional teacher trainer and academic consultant, Super, is going to be delivering today. I think she's there. Are you there, Super?
Yes.
Hello,
Hi, Dale.
Super. Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Super. So today we're going to be having a little discussion to start the session off. Me and Super are going to have a chat about large classes, and hopefully you can give us your thoughts in the chat box. And then we will have Super will deliver a webinar, and then at the end we're going to have lots of time for a Q&A. Now, if you have any questions, you can use the Q&A tab, which is at the bottom of the screen. If you click on Q&A, add a question, or you can add it into the chat box. I'll be monitoring the chat box as well. And we'll answer these, or Super will answer these at the end of the session. So Super's based in, where are you, Super?
I am based in Shanghai, China, and a great warm welcome to you from Shanghai.
Lovely. And how's the weather today, Super? You've got a jacket on. Is it cold?
Yes, it's like autumn, the best time of the year right now in Shanghai. It's a little bit chilly, but not too cold, so I can wear a beautiful jacket. Yeah.
Very nice. Cool. It's always, it's never jacket weather in Thailand unless you're in the air conditioning. So yeah, I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt. All right, so should we get started? As I said, we're going to start with an ELT time. So those of you that have been following us throughout the year will know that we run these ELT time chat shows where we this year we've been inviting guests. But today we're going to do it just a short one with Super and myself. They're normally half an hour long, but today we're going to be about 15 minutes. And we're going to start with some questions about large classes. So Super, I've got some questions for you. And the first question, you being the expert who has prepared lots and lots to do with large classes, is how large is a large class? And as I said, please feel free to put your answers into the chat. Give us your ideas as well. Go ahead, Super.
Yes, I really look forward to teachers' answers as well. I think for me, a large class could be around maybe 40 to 50 students around. It can be a really challenging size of classroom, but it really depends on what you teach, where you are teaching, and the age group of your students, and also what kind of support you will get in the classroom to help you deliver the class. So it is really a very subjective idea of a large class size. But anyway, whenever the teacher feels there is a challenge to facilitate all the students' learning, it can be a large class size for us, I think.
Yeah, and I'm just jumping into the chat here. We've got around 50 is kind of what people are saying in the chat, 30 plus, 40 plus. And someone's actually put 30 students in kindergarten. That's interesting, isn't it? To differentiate between the segments. Obviously, if you had 50 or 60 adults, say, in a class, and 60 kindergarten students in a class,
totally different story.
Yeah, it would be very different, wouldn't it? Now, I did Google the answer to this question: how large is a large class? And obviously, I had very similar answers to what are in the chat. So very different answers. Some were saying 100 is a large class. Some were saying that 50 or above is a large class. But I think for me, like you said, it's a bit relative, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're used to teaching 15 students and you do that for like 6 months, and then one day you turn up for work and your senior teacher says, oh, someone's off sick, so we're going to double up your class, and now you've got 30 students. For you, that's going to be a large class, right? So I guess it is relative. However, when we think about it, I think, or when we're looking at today's session, I would be imagining you're thinking around about 50 plus being a large class, right?
Right. And it's quite
Okay.
common in Asia, I think, for public school like classes to reach 40 to 50, even 60 students. And it's still very common, I think, because
Yeah.
I know like in some other side of the world, maybe 30 can be a really large number already. But
Yeah.
in Asia, we have like bigger, larger classes.
Yeah. And I think yeah, and I should say the reason that we're running sessions like large classes and mixed ability is because we've received this information from you guys in the feedback that you've given us. These are the top two areas that teachers have challenges with in their teaching. So when we ask teachers, what are your biggest challenges? They always say large classes and mixed ability classes. So hopefully we're targeting exactly those challenges that you do have in your teaching in these sessions. The next
Yes.
one, Super, is a more personal question. So how many students have you taught in your largest class ever?
Yes, it's a very interesting question because I believe all the teachers have different experience, including me and you, Del. I have taught around maybe a class about 70 to 80 students when I started my teacher career back to maybe 10 years ago. And it's really, really challenging for a new teacher like me at that time. However, I didn't really have many techniques or skills to manage large class. The class is rather, I believe, rather teacher-centered and is a little bit dull sometimes and can be very challenging for both me and the students because of the size.
Yeah,
And as a trainer, actually, as I gradually develop myself, as I start to do more teaching and getting to do teacher training later in these years, I think for the largest training group I have got is around maybe 200 to 300 teachers in a whole.
right.
So yeah, that's really, really large and big. And but I have like got a lot of new skills set to
Yeah,
manage like large group, and I know how to put teachers into groups, how to do interactive like activities with teachers, how to delegate more responsibilities to teachers themselves, and let them make like ownership on their own learning during the session, which facilitates like active learning. And I believe it is much more rewarding for both the teachers and me, myself as well.
well, and I think that's obviously, I know you very well, Super, and I think that's very it's great to see you have that attitude to teaching large classes, that you see it as a way that you can develop and get better, and as a challenge, but you recognize the challenge. But I love that way that you are coming from this from a how can I get better, rather than like, oh no, I can't do this. This is not, really nice answer. I think we have a winner, apart from, I know you mentioned a higher number, but Nantapon in the chat mentioned she or he, I think it's a she, and Nantapon is 125 students, which is our highest number so far. I've had about around about 60, I would imagine, is probably my largest class, but that's a one-off. That's
Mm.
not a regular class of 60 students every day, every week. Yeah, as Dennis says, a special event where I don't need to know all their names, for example. If I teach a class every day, I need to get to know them, right? I need to get to know their
Yeah.
names. And I guess that's going to come up with the next actual question, which is what challenges the teachers face. So again, please give us your input in the chat. What challenges do you face when you are encountered with a large class? And this is something within our feedback, we say, what are your challenges? Our challenges are a large class, but what are the challenges within that? I think that's what I want to try and find out from today, from you and from our lovely teachers in the chat. So what do you think, Super? What are the main challenges that teachers face?
Yes, I see classroom management a lot of in the chat box, a lot of classroom of course, yeah, when the students number hits 30 or 40, you will get a very like a noisy group in the classroom. So the noise level can be a little bit out of control. It's hard to talk to the students or give instructions sometimes. It's hard to stop them from doing something else. Yeah, classroom management is definitely maybe the top concern for big classes, large classes. And also at the same time, student engagement can be another issue because yeah, you won't be able to monitor every single student at the same time. So some of them may be already lost somewhere in their own world.
Yeah.
And not every student is going to be active and participate into the activities or tasks you assign them to do, and you will lose some of them. And also it's very hard to cater to the students' needs because large group usually has mixed ability like a students group, so
Yeah.
it's hard to meet every student's needs or listen to every student's like a voice. You don't really hear each student and don't know what they really need, and it's going to be a little bit troublesome to build the rapport with them, of course. You can't
Yeah.
talk to them like a every day like a face-to-face individually. So therefore it's hard to facilitate learning, and it's hard to like follow up with each student's progress, to give like enough support and feedback as a result.
Yeah, I would agree. And I made a list myself, and they're on the list. It's really nice to see what people are saying in the chat as well. And yeah, I mean, mixed ability, you mentioned that, and Kidi Jager has also mentioned creating differentiated learning activities. Now, I'm going to talk about that in more detail on Tuesday. So if this is a key area for you, then please come along on Tuesday. Classroom management is in there. Engagement is crucial, says Guy. Hi, Guy. I recognize Guy from previous sessions as well. Mixed level, equal opportunities of people talking. Yeah, these are good things. Some things that I thought about as well was preparation time for teachers. If you are creating worksheets and things like that, obviously, if you have a large class, there's more of that preparation that you have to do. If you are wanting to do cut things out, there's a lot more preparation for teachers. Also, time management as well. Things usually with a large class, things take longer. And that's something to consider as well, which I guess all come into classroom management. And in classroom management, you mentioned noise. I also think about if I'm in a class and I'm in quite a large class at the moment, there's 120 of us, but I'm speaking into a microphone. So I think you would maybe even need a microphone to teach a class, right? Otherwise, getting your voice to the back of the room can also be a challenge, and it's not it's something that we shouldn't consider, because if you're doing that all day, you're going to lose your voice very quickly trying to make sure you're heard by everybody. All right, well, that was a nice little quick discussion, wasn't it? Let me now turn off my camera and my microphone, and I'm going to leave the floor to Super, who's going to now give us some solutions. Is that right, Super, to these challenges?
Some inspirations and some ideas to make a change, maybe, to put it this way. Yeah.
All right. So I will I'll turn off my mic, I'll turn off my camera, and I will be back for the Q&A. So if you do have any questions, use the Q&A tab at the bottom, or write your questions in the chat, and we will pepper Super with our questions at the end of the session. So have a nice session, Super, and see you later.
Yes, thank you very much. And Del, yep, it's my screen turning right now. Okay, so can you guys see my screen okay? Let me know in the chat box if you can see my opening slide. Yes? Oh, wait a second. Yes, okay, very good. So It's a very good like a ELT time style discussion with Del at the beginning to start the whole session. It's a nice try. And I hope you have shared some of your ideas, and we have learned the situations from you guys in the chat box as well. So as the topic indicates, as the theme of the autumn webinar indicates, we want to advancing learning to inspire changes, to change the way you deal with large classes, to share some ideas and tips and also some activities with you to have a try, make a change in your large classrooms. Yeah, and hopefully at the end of the session, you will be able to take away some good ideas and activities to try out after. Okay, so change the way you deal with large classes. The agenda for you for today is very simple. Aligned with the topic, I'd like to change something with you together. First of all, change the mindset, because without changing the mindset, it's just very hard for us to make any changes. So first of all, change the mindset, and then moving on to change the seating of your classroom to make the large classroom like a management possible, to change the activities, to add more types of activities, to add a variety of activity types in the classroom, and also change the way you evaluate and feedback. With a large group, we definitely need to delegate a little bit when it comes to evaluation and feedback. And lastly, change the tools that you can use in a large classroom to make use of the tools to maximize the teaching and the learning of a large class can be crucial and helpful as well. Okay, so we're going to go through the 5 changes one by one, and we'll give you some tips and also activity ideas. And don't forget to share your opinions in the chat box when I go through the session, and ask questions if there is any. Okay, so without further ado, let's quickly move on to the first, change your mindset. We have discussed the challenges, right? We have been through these challenges a lot of times if we are teaching large groups. And especially in Asia, large groups can be quite normal and quite like basic stuff we need to overcome. So it's very easy for us to have these kind of thoughts or attitudes when it comes to large classes. There's no doubt it is very challenging to teach a large class, but probably we can think from a different perspective and to change the mindset a little bit. And it's very frustrating sometimes to plan a lesson, but with these frustrations in mind, and it's easy to give up. And when I was preparing this session, when I was trying to figure out the solutions and to the problems, I got a little bit negative towards large classes, and I easily fall into the mindset that okay, there's nothing I can do. It's really hard to engage, and the students are not going to learn actively. It's very easy to get into this kind of mindset, but as a result, we might need to change that kind of mindset a little bit. For example, if you think the noise level in your classroom is too high, you can turn your mindset into okay, the energy level is actually much better than a small class. We really need to have active activities in the classroom to make the students engaged, so that kind of energy can be made use of. If not, sometimes too much energy can be a problem, but making good use of that energy can be a great thing. And now in the chat box, could you please share some of your ideas about a positive perspective of all the other ideas towards a large class? For example, it's hard to know all the students well in large classes. Do you have any other perspective to take from this challenge? For example, there are so many students in large classes, right? It's hard to know them well, but at the same time, it's very good to know more interesting people. Yeah, the larger the class is, the more interesting people you are going to meet, you're likely to meet and know. So it's great to have a variety of students in the classroom to get to know each other. For example, there's nothing I can really do to change the teacher-fronted format in large classes. Why not think about, okay, I can try out a new idea or add a new activity or just make a small change once a time to see how things work. If you already don't like the large classroom, if you already get like frustrated about the current situation, it's good to try out one new idea or one new activity. Yeah. Yeah, as James said, the larger class helps the time to go fast. Yeah, time goes much faster. You probably don't need that many like fillers or like backup activities, because one activity will actually take more time to finish. So it's another good thing about teaching large classes. And also, yeah, you can know more interesting people. If you don't have like a time for pair or like a group work, you can think about the more students in one class, the more variety, the more variability you have to put students into groups and pairs. And the students are not like it's hard to promote active learning, but it's worth trying, because active learning are going to be much more engaged and the students will love it if it is the case. And also, if you have a mixed ability classroom, the odds are you will never ask a question only to face silence or a single answer. So the larger the class is, the more grouping you will have, the more variety of students you will have. Yeah, so these are the good parts of teaching a large group. And it is something we need to think about when we plan a large group lesson. So it is going to be the starting point for us to make changes. So hopefully you will start by thinking about something positive and change your mindset a little bit, doing like adding a new idea, doing a new activity like once a time, to gradually moving on to better, larger classroom management and teaching. Okay, so this is about how to change your mindset. And I will give you one idea about how to get to know your students better in a large group class. Because we know it's challenging, right? We know it's hard to know every student very well at the beginning of a large group class. So here is a very low prep activity you can do. All you need is a piece of paper for one student. So you can ask your student to prepare one slice of paper, or you can just hand over one piece of paper to the students, and take out one pen, draw a cloud in the middle, and then draw some other lines to make it into a very simple mind map. And then ask your students to write one sentence in the cloud. I can't imagine life without blah, blah, blah. So you can also change this sentence, of course, but if you want to know your students at the beginning of a class, of a large class, it's great to get your students to write something about themselves and give you as much information as possible about themselves. So after drawing the mind map, you ask your students to write down or draw or doodle something they think is most important in their life. For example, tea, cats, and feeling safe, my garden, a lot of information will be there in this simple low prep mind map on a piece of paper. And in this way, you can ask your students to give information about themselves. And this is really great because you don't have to prepare too many teaching materials. All you need is a paper and some pen or colored pen. It's good for a new group of class, especially large class. And it can be displayed after drawing and writing on these papers. It can be displayed for everybody to see in the classroom. You can create a corner about like a student's profile. And it also can be collected for you to know all the students. The language can be adjusted to your students' needs. If they are like young learners, you can ask them to draw. You can ask them to look up into the dictionary for new words. If they are adults, they can write more information in each box to give supporting details. And also the format can be adjusted to meet your needs. You can create a personal profile if they are adult students or university students. You can use a questionnaire format, to give your students some where to write and submit about themselves. So this kind of activities can also be followed up with speaking activities to let the students to do pair work or group work, to share each information about each other, to know each other at the beginning of the class. So in order to know your students at the beginning of a large class, or in order to get your students to know each other at the beginning of a large class, it is a good activity to do. And you can adjust the language and format to meet your needs in the classroom. Okay, so this is one idea of how to get to know your students. Brainstorming is another great idea. That's right. And they can ask the students get into groups to see if they can find some common answers. Yes, exactly. Very good ideas in the chat box. Don't forget to check out the chat box to see more ideas. Thank you very much. And moving on to the next change we can do. So the second thing is about change the seating. I know sometimes it's hard to change the seating, but there are always some possibilities. There are always something we can do about changing the seating, even if the seats are fixed. So let's have a look how. So first of all, in the chat box, I want you to let me know which kind of classroom do you have? What kind of classroom do you currently teach? Is it like a large hall, or is it like a traditional like a single row classroom, or it's like a group work format, or it's like a university like lecture hall? Please in the chat box, A, B, C, D. Let me check your answers. Yes. C is the dominant answer. A, we also have got A, B. It's great. I didn't see any of you are teaching in D. Dr. DR Hala. Sorry about the pronunciation. You are teaching in the classroom of D. That's going to be a real challenge compared to ABC, I guess. Yes. And none of the above. Let me know which kind of classroom you have. If there is none of the above. A and D, B and C. Wow, we have a really variety here. And sometimes depending on the age group, maybe in primary school, we usually have C type of classroom. In maybe a university level, we will have A and D type of classroom. And for teenagers, sometimes we will have like a B or C type of classroom. And when we look at our own classroom, when we think about the seating, I always recommend you to make some changes, because when I go out to do face-to-face trainings in these years, the first thing I would like to check with the event organizer or the training session like organizer, the first thing I check with them is about the seating, because I know how important it is going to be to my training, and how important it is going to make a difference in the trainees like learning. So similarly, when you go to your classroom and teach your students, especially as a language teacher, I imagine maybe for a math teacher, the seating is not as important as a language teacher, English language teacher like us. Because when we teach language, the students need time and space to practice speaking with partners or in small groups, to share ideas, to apply what they have learned from you, the teacher, to use the language with some real purposes with their peers. So it is very important to think about the possibilities of changing the seating into small groups, or even to separate a spare space in the room to do some physical activities, to stand up and to do some physical activities, and also to get the students to get some room for you as the teacher to go around the room and monitor each group or each student when necessary. So these are the first thing I usually check when I plan a training session. So the idea for teachers is very similar. When you look at your classroom, you think about what different seating positions are possible without moving anything. Yeah, if your tables, your seats are fixed, what kind of options do you have to make groups or pairs? Is it like turning around, or maybe stepping out of their desks or chairs to go to another like a room or go outside, or even just go into the spare space in the classroom to do more grouping and pairing work? If possible, are there any rearrangements of seat possible? Yeah, if possible, that's great. Yeah, which kind of areas in the room are great for learners to stand and interact? And is there any possibility if the room could be completely rearranged on a semi-permanent basis to make better language classroom space? Because language classroom can be a little bit, yeah, different from other subjects. So if possible, if we can get any closer to this type of ideal classroom learning, that would be great. But if not ideal, at least we can think about some options to make a change. Yeah, instead of asking your students to sit in the rows from the beginning of the class till the end, there is always a time we can do something different. We can ask them to stand up, we can ask them to turn around, we can ask them to get out of their chairs and go around the room. Yeah, as long as there is a possibility, we can make a change. So that's the idea of how you can start thinking about changing the seating. And once you start thinking about the possibilities, here are some ideas you can use from the Bible of the ELT, like teaching industry, called The Learning Teaching by Jim. This book is a really, really good like teacher professional development book. You will know everything about how to teach English in a classroom. So Jim has suggested these seating possibilities in a standard classroom. We have pairs, we have face-to-face lines, rows, we have like public speaking styles, we have bus groups, wheels, panel, sitting teams, and enemy corners. So these are some kind of possibilities you can rearrange your classroom seating into different types of activities. So we probably can think about whether we can do maybe panel instead of rows, instead of like traditional rows. We can ask your students to stand up face to face, even back to back in the like spare space in the classroom to do some face-to-face or back-to-back conversations. We can make students into small groups, and the members of the groups can change occasionally, yeah, to make them like into bus groups. Yeah, all these like seating possibilities can be great in terms of some kind of activities in the language classroom. As long as there is a possibility, try out one seating possibility at a time to see if it works. If the first time doesn't work, try a second time and make some changes to improve it. So the idea is you let your students move. You don't ask them to sit from the beginning to the end. You encourage them to work with different people. You ask them to share ideas with different people to create some, yeah, surprises, to create some interactions. So different kind of interaction patterns will take place when you allow your students to sit differently. So it is going to good for pair work and group work. and you will allow a lot of situations to be recreated. For example, you can read a story, you can watch a video, you can do a like project group work. These like activities will be possible when you recreate the classroom seating. And also you can add a variety to the predicted of sitting in the same place. The students will be more motivated or surprised when you add these kind of varieties into the activities and into the classroom. Okay, so let's think about what kind of seating arrangement would you like for these following activities. Or you can think about what kind of seating arrangement might be possible for playing games, for doing projects, for practice speaking, for singing songs. What kind of seating arrangement works best for different types of activities? So in the chat box, again, let me see. In the chat box, can you share some of your ideas about what would you like to do? What would you like to try to maybe when you greet the students, when you ask your students to greet each other? Or when you ask your students to practice speaking, which kind of seating is the best? For example, you can put like playing games, bus groups, greeting, like face-to-face, reading stories, panel, singing songs, enemy corners, playing games, opposing teams, because we put like, maybe we can put like the class into two teams. They are going to compete with each other, so we put them into opposing teams. For practicing speaking, we can use pairs or face-to-face or wheels and bus groups. Yes, face-to-face could be good for practicing speaking. Yes, and when we use the face-to-face like lines, we can also ask the students to change partners very easily, right? Because they are standing in a line and they can exchange like partners in maybe 5 seconds. Yes, and we have greeting panel. Yes, singing a song wheels, jigsaw reading for bus groups. Yes, wheels for games, introducing new vocabulary, panel and public meeting. Yes, so there are different seating arrangements appropriate or ideal for different activities. We don't have to try out all the seating like arrangement in one class. We don't have to use all the seating arrangements like at a time, but think about the possibilities to add one new seating arrangement for one class and have a try of using maybe panel in this class, and next time you try to have the wheels. Yeah, so when you do different kind of activities, when you introduce different kind of seating arrangements, yeah, introduce them gradually, step by step, give in like clear instructions, yeah, to see what works and what doesn't work, and to change things to make things work, and to add like a variety once the students are used to the seating arrangement. Once they get used to it, you can add something new. Once they are clear and make them into routines, is also another way to save time and to do better classroom management. Yes, very good. And let me move on with another activity. So let your students move. Remember this mind map about students' personal like interests. After the students working on this paper of themselves, you can follow up with a speaking activity and combine with a different seating arrangement. You can use the wheel like a seating arrangement. If you have like a larger group, you can have maybe multiple wheels to let the students to stand up into circles. And you can make a smaller wheel or a bigger wheel depending on how many students you have. Yeah, you ask your students to say hi to each other, and they will give their name and also one piece of personal information about themselves. So they don't go through the whole the whole mind map. They just share one piece of information with one partner, and then they rotate to meet another partner and exchange one information and then exchange. And also they can try to find something in common using a bus group. Yeah, you put like maybe 8 students in one bus group, and the students can share information about like similarities and differences. So these seating arrangements will allow you to bring in different interaction patterns and let your students to move a little bit and meet different people. So as I mentioned, you can use different seating arrangements, face-to-face, bus groups, can be used in all kinds of speaking activities, not only the self-introduction activity, to create new pairs and groups, and to create opportunities to talk to different people. Yeah, you can change the seating arrangement as long as it is appropriate. You can vary between fixed routines and new ideas. Yeah, when the students are used to certain seating arrangements, you make them into routines, but add new ideas to keep them on their toes. Yeah, and to set a time limit for moving and talking, very, very key, because once you let your students to talk in pairs or in groups, they're going to be a very high risk for you to lose control. So it is very important to set a time limit before they start to move, and give a signal using maybe visual signal and audio signal to let them know when it's time to move and when it's time to stop. You can use like a background music or using a bell to ring the bell to remind them to change partners or to stop the activity. So these ideas can be adapted and adjusted to your classroom as long as it is possible, and do it step by step, gradually, slowly, yeah, to try out new ideas as long as it's possible. Okay, that's the second change, and let's quickly move on to the third. So in the third part of the change, we're going to think about the activities. So we all know in a large like a class, it's very likely for the classroom like interaction to be teacher-student interaction, like a very one-way interaction. And it's very easy to get into the teacher-fronted format or teacher-centered format. The students will learn passively, they listen passively, they don't really focus. It's hard for them to be motivated in these kind of activities. So in this kind of classes, so we really want to think about the possibilities to add pair work and group work, and for a language classroom to maximize student talking time is one of the key to the success. So reduce the teacher talking time, make the class more student-centered is always one of the most important change we can do to improve our large class size teaching. So thinking about pair work and group work, what can we do? So what can we do to bring in better quality pair work and group work, to make the pair work and group work like manageable is something we're going to talk about. So again, from this very useful teachers like professional development book, Learning Teaching, Jim has given us some guidance on what kind of activity arrangements can we have, and what kind of variations we can always change on the activity arrangements. So again, from individual work to pair work to small groups to large groups to whole class, mingle, whole class plenary, we have a bank or a pool of activity arrangements we can do in the classroom. We can add different kinds of arrangements in one classroom. We don't have to do all of them in one class, but we can pick up some ideas from individual work or pair work or small groups, and add some variations when it's necessary. For example, when the students work individually, they can either only think in their mind and write at the same time. You can permit them to write or not. When they do pair work, we can ask them to pair differently. You can choose the pair as the teacher. The students can choose the pairs. These pairs can be randomly selected from a game or something else. You can do the pairs face to face, back to back, or even across the room, like the energy, like our enemy groups. We have introduced in the seating possibilities. You can also ask your student to communicate in writing only in pair work. Yeah, depending on how you would like to organize the pair work, there are a lot of variations. For small groups, up to like 3 to 6 people or 7 to 8 sometimes, yeah, you can ask the students to have a role. For example, you have a secretary for the group, you have a leader, you have some different membership of the groups can be like changed occasionally. You can have ambassadors or parrots to other groups to steal or to gain some ideas. Yeah, they can exchange members as ambassadors or pirates to steal ideas, to add a little bit surprise, to make a little bit like variations when you organize like group work, no matter small group or large group. For whole class, when you ask your students to stand up and walk around to meet different people, you can ask the student to speak to only one person at a time, or meet up to maximum of 3 or 5 or 3, 4, 5 people. You can set up time limits. You can ring a bell. Yeah, as I mentioned, you can stop the background music. Yeah, to force rearrangements. And for plenary, you don't always have to be the teacher. You can ask the student to be the teacher. You can ask a group of students to organize and introduce something. You can ask the students to do bus group works or pair works at the same time to do group work plenary. So you have like a brief bus intervals of pair work and small group discussions while you are organizing a plenary whole class like type of activity. So there are a lot of possibilities for activity arrangements, and you can always add some variations when you think you need something new. So here, I would like to give you some ideas and tips about how to better manage your activities, group works or pair works. So first of all, you need to give really clear instructions what kind of arrangements you want the students to do. So for example, one example from our primary course book, Give Me 5, there is a class talk like a poster. You can put up this poster as a signal for the students to do maybe individual work or partner work or group work or whole classroom discussion. So once maybe for example the pair work starts, you just put up this arrow into like top partners or pair work. You give very clear instructions about what pair work, like the time limit, the responsibilities, and the signals you give. And when you turn to group work, you turn the arrow into the group work like a area and give specific instructions about what's expected for a group work. Or also you can do a demo for other students to know what exactly to do in a small group. And when you want them to focus on individual quiet work, you just turn the arrow into the individual work area. So give very clear instructions about what to do and how to do it in terms of pair work, group work, or individual work. And also signpost the activity type and make them into routines. So this is an example from our another primary like course book, Share It. So we have pair share, group share, and class share activities integrated into every class. So the students will know when they see these icons, when they see the pair work icon, pair share, they know it's time to do a pair work. When it's group work, they see the group share icon. So signpost the activity type and also make them into routines to reduce the organization time and stress, to carefully structure all the speaking activities from maybe pair work to group work to class work. So these signposts, I think, is very important to your success of the management of classroom activities. Yeah, you can create your own like icons or posters about each different pair activity, but do make them into routines and signpost them very clearly, give instructions very clearly as well. Yeah, and you can find some information about these books in the chat box. If you're interested, you can find out them later. And also, not only signpost them and give instructions, you can also vary the way of pairing and grouping. So here are two ideas for you to do pairing and grouping. You can use some lollipop sticks and write the student's name and put the student's name on the stickers and pick the students' names when you want to pair students or group students. And you can also ask your students to pair, and they pick the lollipop sticks by themselves to choose a partner. Not only lollipop sticks, you can also use a bag with all the students' names in it, or a box, or any type of format you want to use. And also, you can use a matching cards activity to group your students or pair your students. At the beginning of the class, when the students get into the classroom, you give one piece of cards to them, and every student will get a different piece of cards. And then when you want the students to be in a group, you ask them to find the other piece of the shape. When they match, they will become a group or a pair. And you don't always have to do shapes. You can do a picture, maybe some celebrities. You can cut them into pieces and ask the students to match all the pieces to make it into a whole photo or picture. So you just give them the cards when they enter the classroom without telling them what to do. And when you want them to be in groups, okay, ask them to find their partners in 2 minutes and then sit down and work together as a group. So vary the way of pairing and grouping. Yeah, for teenagers, as I mentioned, you can change the shapes into maybe some other pictures the adult or teenager students will be interested in. Yeah, or even a poster, something more engaging, something more relevant to teenager and adult students will be appropriate for older students. Yeah, don't use shapes. Yeah, shapes could be good for younger learners, but use more relevant pictures and posters. Okay, yeah, in the chat, Del, yes, please. Ask everybody in the chat to share your ideas. Yeah, this is about how to vary the way of pairing and grouping. And moving on to some other ideas to facilitate group work. I have tried a lot of times of this idea in my training. That is to use assigned roles in group work. So when you put students into a group, it's very likely for some students to be more active than the others. And some students will maybe benefit more from a group work, and some of them may just be silent, right? It's very common. So when you assign a role to each member of the group and give support to them to act on that role, to contribute, it's going to be a lot more effective for a group work. So in my training sessions, I will usually prepare some role cards. I will print them out and cut them into a small piece of card. So when I want them to work in groups, I just give each group a role card set, so they can pick a role randomly, or they can assign roles to different members of the team by themselves, depending on the situation. So on the card, you will find that so first of all, every member of the team is a member, right? They need to be willing to share ideas, to listen to others, be encouraging, to indicate when you agree or disagree, to use body language, small nod, raise hands, and also will provide some key phrases to use when they start to discuss or brainstorm. And for each individual role, for example, initiator or maybe leader, facilitator, there will be a responsibility for them to do. For example, the initiator must start the discussion and set the tone at the very first beginning. So the initiator is going to start the conversation and share the ideas first. And the key phrases to use is provided for them to start. Yeah, to give some scaffolding and use some phrases to start working in the group is very key. For the recorder or maybe secretary, or sometimes you can call him like the note taker. Yeah, he or she will be in charge of the note taking and to keep necessary records for later like presentations, because after the group work, there will be someone called the presenter to present the ideas to the whole group, right? So for the recorder or the secretary, they're in charge of the note taking, but for the presenter, he or she is going to work together with the secretary to make the presentation and as a spokesman or spokeswoman to like represent the team. And also you can have a timekeeper, yeah, to keep the time, to facilitate the process, yeah, to remind everybody, okay, we have 10 minutes, so everyone will have 1 minute to share your idea. And when the time is there, just stop, yeah, ask them to move on to make sure everyone has a chance to talk. And for some older students, you can also have like a role called critic. So he's going to raise the objections, yeah, to identify what goes wrong and to, yeah, give a critical maybe perspective towards everybody's opinions. And the key is ask them to change roles and also include all these key phrases for them to use. Otherwise, it's going to be hard for them to start a conversation. Once they have these support and the scaffolding is there, they will be more willing to start a discussion and easier to get them engaged into this group work. Yes, all this training will be recorded and you can review the recording, and also you will be able to review all these informations included. Yes, and you can also find a lot of information. When you can Google like using assigned roles in group work, you will find more ideas as well. And if you are feeling creative, you can also add more roles. For example, for younger learners, you can assign like Harry Potter roles, Disney like princess or princess roles to them. So every student will be a different like role when they talk. They will need to talk in like maybe Harry Potter. Or for older students, you can use like the Avengers like roles, talk like Spider-Man or Iron Man. Yeah, so if you want to add more creativity into the group work, when appropriate, you can add, yeah, more roles. Make sure the students will know these roles. Most of them know these roles. Yeah, make it relevant, make it like engaging by introducing familiar roles to the students are very, very important. And when you introduce roles, don't forget, yeah, you show the name of the role on the board, go through the role together with the students if they're not familiar. Yeah, you give students a list of phrases to use, or you can have the students to work together to generate a list as well, depending on the language level or age group. Yeah, it's very, very key. Yeah, very, very key to give the students a list of phrases. For example, when you introduce maybe Harry Potter roles, you can list like a list of phrases Harry Potter usually use, or Ron. Yeah, it's going to be a lot more engaging if you do it this way. And also you can make a like index card with the student's name and the role on it, and then put the card maybe on their shoulder, or for everybody to see, yeah, what role the student is playing, and for you to monitor the students like performance as well. And give them a card or give them a piece of paper for those phrases to use, yeah, as a support. And when necessary, yeah, have them to assign roles by themselves, or choose a role randomly, yeah, or take on the role like take on a different role, exchange like roles or switch roles, exchange members. It's also another variation you can do to make the group work a lot more effective. Yeah. For example, when you start to do the group work for 10 minutes, you ask maybe the timekeeper to change a group. So timekeeper in group 1 goes to group 2, and the following groups does the same. So this is going to add a lot of surprises and make things more active and exciting as well. Yes. Yeah. And yeah, depending on your students, depending on your classroom, you can definitely adapt these ideas and these roles to make it work best for your students. Okay, very good. And also, not only the roles, but also the activities are very important. When you do pair work and group work, if the activity itself is really dull, is really like a grammar driven, the students are not going to really like get into it. You have to make the speaking activities meaningful to engage the pair work and group work. So for example, by creating gaps is really a good idea. So you can create some information gap for pair or small group work. You can create maybe students like experience gap. You know, every student has different experience. So you can use questionnaires to ask the students to collect information about each other's experience. You can take on like the opinion gap for the students to share some personal ideas in personalized activities. You can create, you can take use of the knowledge gap to have some brainstorm or quiz activities. So by creating a gap is really a way to make the speaking activity meaningful. And the most commonly used meaningful pair work or small group work is called the information gap activities. I want to show you a very good example from our book called Share It. And it is especially designed for busy teachers to set up speaking activities without any preparation. So this book is called the Share Book. As the name indicates, the student will be able to share ideas very easily in pair work or small group work using this book. Because in this book, we have created a lot of information gap or opinion gap or maybe experience gap type of activities. And you don't have to photocopy the student, because every student will have a share book. When you want the students to do the pair work, you just ask them to take out the share book and to do it in pairs or in small groups. And taking this example for you to maybe create some information gap in your own classroom as an example. So let me show you how it works. So for example, after teaching and learning the vocabulary and grammar of each unit, the students are going to do a very quick share book activity. So this share book activity will practice the vocabulary and grammar learned in these 2 lessons. And the student will do a meaningful pair work or small group work activity to practice these words and the grammar, but with a real purpose to close the gap. So in this lesson, the students are learning vocabulary, like food vocabulary sets. And the sentence structure they learn is, what do you want for dinner? I want a burger and a pie, please. So these are the things they're going to practice, but we have created this meaningful like information gap task. So you will find out there is a student A and a student B worksheet. So in pair work, the student A will take the A sheet and the student B will take another sheet. So you find there are different like items, right? Different food items on the sheet. So the student, there is a gap between student A and student B. So they can exchange information about with each other to do a speaking activity. And the instructions are very clear how to play. Like student A and B, they will place the food cards face up, and they will place the meal cards face down. And they are going to ask each other, what do you want for dinner? I want a burger and a pie. And they will pick out the cards and put into the meal card. So in this way, the students will practice the target sentence structure and the vocabulary while doing a real like meaningful information gap task. And also for small groups, we have this type of this type of activities as well. So information group work. So in this activity, the students will work in 2 pairs. So you will find the student A and the student B, they will have the same sheet, but they are going to work with another pair. So 4 students will work together to collect information about their preference of food. So the students will ask each other, does she like pears? Yes, she does. Does he like bananas? Yes, he does. So in this way, they collect information about each other in a group of 4, and they tick or cross that box to make a final list of the students' preference towards these fruits. So in this way, an information gap is closed by the students practicing the target vocabulary and grammar. So this type of activities are quite common when it comes to meaningful speaking activities. And you can create your own. Yeah, the example from Share It is really great because I know this is something really teachers wants in the classroom, to set up very easy to manage like pair work and group work without too much preparation. And if you don't have this book, I think this can be an example for you to make some maybe worksheets or some information gap type activity worksheets to bring the classroom some like meaningful speaking activities. Yes. And yeah, and also, for example, the common activity 20 questions is a very good example of an information gap activity you can do. You ask your student to work in pairs or in small groups or even in a whole group of class. One student thinks of an item or object, and then the other students ask questions in order to figure out what item it is. But they can only ask yes or no questions, and the student will tell the other group of the students yes or no until they figure out the answer in 20 questions. If the other of the student figure out, they win. But if they don't, the student who is thinking of the item will win. This is a very common game, right? We play maybe in other occasions as well. But in a language classroom, this is a type of information gap activity you can organize without preparation. Yeah, you just need to limit maybe the category. For example, if you are teaching like food, you ask your student to come up with a food in mind. Yeah, to limit the category to make sure the students will be able to ask questions and answer with enough language in your classroom. Yeah, so this is some ideas you can do. And you can also go to onestopenglish.com. On the Macmillan English website, you will find some grammar and vocabulary games. There are a lot of worksheets to download if necessary. There are also some information gap type of activities there for you to use or for reference in the classroom to create your own. Okay, so this is the third change we can do. That is the change the activities, which is one of the most important thing, I guess, because the activity is at the center of the large group like classroom management, and also by changing the seating is also going to allow you to do different kinds of activities. And then next, let's move on to evaluation and feedback. We know that usually the teacher will be in charge of the evaluation and feedback, but when it comes to a large class, the time it takes is going to be overwhelming for teachers. We find it hard to mark the homework or to give individual feedback to the student. So in large groups, we definitely need to incorporate and to bring in more peer feedback or self-evaluation, reflection type of activities to make the students more independent and let them take the ownership of their own learning and give each other support and make the classroom more of a positive environment for the students to learn and grow together. The teacher is not only the one who's responsible for evaluation and feedback. So in order to achieve this goal, For example, I want to introduce some ideas from our Macmillan English, like Macmillan Education course books as well for you as reference. For example, the first thing is to make the learning objectives clear from the beginning. So when you start a unit or you start a course, let your students be aware of the learning objectives. And this is one example from our adult product called American Language Hub. And at the beginning of each unit, we introduce the learning objectives to the students, and they are going to evaluate themselves to whether if they can do, like can talk about transportation in a city, can talk about journey at the end of a unit. So in this way, the student will be responsible of monitor themselves about their progress in these objectives, and they will be able to evaluate themselves or evaluate each other at the end of the unit as well. And you also need to train your students to do self or peer evaluation. So we actually introduce a lot of self-evaluation or self-reflection competency in our course books. For example, in the primary course book, Story Essential Plus, at the end of the unit, we ask the students to think about the whole chapter, which means the whole unit, and they need to color and complete whether they are not sure about their learning or they're okay or they got it. And they need to indicate which page or which part of the unit they like most to give you some information and feedback about their learning and to evaluate themselves. We train them to do this unit by unit. So gradually they will be more aware of the self-evaluation part, and we encourage them to evaluate peers as well. And also for teenager students, when they do a project, for example, in Get Involved. So after doing a project work in small groups, they're going to do a final reflection about what they did. So they're going to evaluate themselves about the whole task, if it's like successful and how hard, how easy it is. And they are also going to evaluate their own skills, whether they have used the skills we introduced and trained them. For example, visual, use visuals creatively. And also they will evaluate their own language learning at the same time. So when you ask older students to do self-evaluation or group evaluation or peer evaluation, you make the evaluation a lot more detailed. You ask them to think about the whole task, think about the skills they have learned and the language they have used, and also beyond the task, they're going to think about the possibilities they can do beyond the project itself. And not only train them to do the self-reflection or evaluation, you also share the evaluation rubrics with them to make them understand and aware how to evaluate. So the rubrics can be about maybe a speaking, a writing, a listening, or even a reading task, but it also can be a project work. So in terms of the task fulfillment, the skills, the content, the language, and the final presentation of the project, we have band 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can share with the students before they do the project. They know what to expect and what is the good example for them. This is also one example from the Get Involved secondary book. So share the evaluation rubrics with your students, or even create the rubrics together with your students to give more ownership to them when it comes to self-evaluation or peer evaluation. And it's great because when you evaluate group work, it's going to reduce a lot of time for you to group individual work. So more group work reduces time for you to mark and evaluate as well. And also we train our students to give feedback. This is also very key. So when it comes to give feedback, it gets a little bit sensitive sometimes. It can be a little bit hard to give each other feedback. So we can use this letter of feedback from Harvard University, the education department of Harvard University. we use this letter to build up our feedback, to train our students to, give feedback to each other. We ask the students to ask questions to clarify it before they start to judge and give feedback. And when they start to give feedback, it starts from the positive parts. You give like honest accomplishments to each other, and also, moving on to the concerns, and give maybe some suggestions at the end. So by following this ladder, the students will be more effective in giving each other feedback, and train your students to do this is going to be really valuable like resources for the students to be able to do that. And lastly, quickly, I'm going to mention a very, very useful tool for you to change your classroom management in a large class. That is Kahoot. I believe you are all familiar with Kahoot. So I'm going to introduce you some like accessible resources that you can use in the classroom. So Macmillan Education has been working with Kahoot to create a lot of quizzes that everybody can use in your classroom. So when you go to Kahoot and you search for Macmillan Education, you will find a lot of quizzes, ready-to-go quizzes are there for you to do in the classroom, from CFR level pre-A1 all the way up to C2 in terms of grammar and vocabulary. So no matter what kind of material you are using in your classroom or you are teaching, no matter what age group of your students are, you can always find some quizzes available for you to use. For example, from pre-A1, we have all these toys, family, colors, shapes. You can use all of these activities and quizzes on Kahoot to engage your students in a large class. Even on an online class, it is possible to engage more, because every time I play a Kahoot quiz, I get really excited, and the students and the audience get really, really excited, and the response you will get is going to be overwhelming. So believe me, try the Kahoot quiz, search Macmillan Education on Kahoot and try. So for older students, especially for teenager and adult student, we also have created like course specific quizzes to use. For example, for Gateway to the World and Get Involved, these two secondary like course books, we have created some unit like specific quizzes. So if teachers are using these two books right now in your classroom, you can definitely use these quizzes at the end of the unit, at the end of the class, or at the beginning of the class as a warm-up or as a cool-down activity. The good thing is you can collect information about the students like learning while playing these interactive activities. You will see the student's name on the board, right? And you will see how well they're doing. So this is also a good way to evaluate the students' learning without like testing them or even assessing them. It's a casual activity you can do, but at the same time, you can check your students' learning, and the students will be more engaged. Okay, so here's an example of Kahoot, like a gateway. We don't have time to do the quiz, but I really suggest to you to try it out at your time. And beside like Kahoot, you can also try Mentimeter to have an interactive like quiz with your student. So these are some of the quizzes I did before in my training sessions in large groups, and it worked really, really well. Okay, so I know I'm like around 5 minutes over time, so I need to quickly like wrap up the whole session. So in the session we had today, we have 5 changes to make in a large classroom. So we can, starting by changing our mindset all the way to seeding activities, evaluation, feedback, and the tools. I hope there is something interesting or something useful for you to try out in your classroom after the session. And thank you very much for your contributions in the chat box about ideas of teaching a large group. Thank you very much.
Hi, Sophia. Thanks for that really nice session. Lots of chat lots of people sharing ideas, which is really nice to see. We don't have time really now for a Q&A, but there was just one question that we will answer because Amir posted it earlier, and he's talking about changing the mindset. Quite a lot of schools, students, and parents expect a teacher-fronted context where the teacher must take up the role of the ultimate explainer. Have you got any advice for Amir in terms of changing the mindset there?
You mean the changing the mindset of the school and the parents?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, a lot of schools, students, and parents expect the teacher to explain things, to be the kind of lecturer. Is there any way that you can provide any help in messaging that and changing the mindset?
Okay, so first of all, I believe the younger parents, they are also developing their like mindsets as well, because a lot of like how do we say, like language schools or language teaching training centers, they have like a lot of engaging and interactive classrooms, and the parents send their kids to these private language schools for after school tutoring, and they know how good these kind of language classrooms can be. And if you can relate that a little bit to that kind of like a common objectives of like improving the students' learning and making taking like maybe examples from some research and some like data from these kind of classrooms to engage better like language learning would be helpful. But I think it takes time. It really takes time for parents or for the school to move on to like more, how do we say, advanced like a classroom format. So
Yeah.
maybe show them maybe the if show them how things work in other areas of the world, and promise them to try maybe a little bit like in one class and
Yeah.
show the result.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for the session. And please, everybody, don't go anywhere. I've got some important things to tell you. The first is that you can win a prize. I'm going to show you how you can win a prize now. So if you can just see my screen, I know you can see that there. So hang on a moment. So there's our prize. How do you do that? Well, you can complete our survey. If you would be so kind as to give us your feedback on today's session so that we can then build that into other sessions that we deliver to you. Let me just share the link in the chat. So have a click on that and give us your feedback, and you will go into a lucky draw, and we will pull out some lucky winners, and the prizes will be delivered to you at your schools or your institutions. So please, please, please make sure you complete the survey. As I mentioned at the start, we have a session on Friday, which is a global session, which is all about change and giving you the tools and inspiration to make change yourself, and to see this as a rewarding and a way of developing professionally. And then following that, you've got me. I will be here on Tuesday for another interactive session. I'm going to use some online tools to hopefully engage you. We're going to look at mixed ability classes, another hot topic, kind of linked in some ways to large classes, but I'm going to be looking at specific areas of mixed ability and how you can become better, hopefully, at dealing with mixed ability classes.
Yes, I really look forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. It's always such a nice group and such a nice crowd to spend time with. So hopefully you'll all join us again on Tuesday. You will get a certificate. Please don't worry. This will be coming along with the link for the recording. And you can get that at the end of this session. We'll be sending that automatically. But please be patient, as I mentioned, and you will see that maybe in your spam folder. So don't forget to check your spam folders as well. And lastly, if you would like to follow us on Facebook, you can click the or scan the QR code there that you can see. And also we have a WeChat group, which you can also get lots of information about other events that are coming up, both locally, regionally, and globally as well. So don't forget to follow us there. All right, so I will just like to say a very big thank you for you all participating and joining the session today. I look forward to seeing you again on Friday and on Tuesday. And I wish you all a very lovely afternoon, evening, or even, depending on where you are, a nice day. So take care. Nice to see you and see you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye. See you soon. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.